Okay, back to Monday Night Mishlei. And I'll give my little disclaimer is that I am sick, and I main reason why I'm giving shiur tonight is for a selfish reason, because I know that Mishlei always makes me feel better. Teaching always makes me feel better. But and then just as I was preparing, I saw a pasuk just now that says that to that effect. It's in chapter 3. It says, so that we talk about a lot. In all your ways, know him, you should know God, and he will straighten your paths. Don't be a chacham in your eyes, fear Hashem and turn away from evil. And then it says, Rifus tihi l'shareka v'shikui latmosaka. And those are really weird words, so I had to just cheat by looking at our scroll here. It says, it will be health to your navel and marrow to your bones, which is some sort of like, I forgot what they held the role of marrow was back then, but some sort of expression of health here. Let's see if there's any dependable radak on this. No, I'm not going to try learning this right now. Anyway, so that's just something to look into there. So I assume this will be fine, but I mentioned in the description of the shiur that you might need to do more of the heavy lifting, and it might take me a little bit more time to process stuff because my head gets really groggy when I'm not feeling well. So okay, so let's go to our pasuk. Okay, this is Mishlei 12:23. Adam arum kose da'as v'leiv kasilim yikra iveles. Who wants to translate?
I could try.
Okay.
So a man who's an arum. Translate an arum here.
Well, think I mean, whatever word you usually use for the nachash. Nachash is the first time arum appears in Tanakh. So
yeah. I forgot we had arum before, but I don't remember how it's translated, especially because like it feels like the first kosa das, like it's kosa like it's like
I can give it a shot. All right, I want to phone a friend.
Yeah, phone a friend. Yeah, David.
Okay. A cunning person covers knowledge.
Okay. So
it's not
cunning,
to hold. Kosa is not to hold.
No, it's to cover. Unless there's some meaning of it that I'm not thinking of, but definitely like a kisui, like kisui harosh, you know. Yeah, so cunning is the term we usually use, and the reason why we use cunning is especially fitting for Mishlei, because I think because we think of the snake in Bereshis as being arum, then we think of it as having a negative connotation, but in Mishlei it has a positive connotation, and so if you need a word that could be used for like both, then you don't want to make it too negative or too positive. So cunning, I feel like fits. Cunning has like it definitely has a sinister edge, but you could be like, some people like the word shrewd, but I don't really use that term enough to feel like it's a natural term. Okay, anyway, go ahead, Ariel.
Yeah, v'leiv kasilim, and the hearts of the fools, yikra ivalet. It's called a fool.
Okay, so but the heart of the fools calls, or let's say proclaims, I think is probably the better one, foolishness. Okay, so we don't have any Metzudat and we don't have any Sadigon translation. However, in his commentary, he says this really weird thing. Okay, he says nigzar. So he's explaining the word koseh, which I think everyone learns to mean covers. Okay, except he learns this nigzar chaf sameche mean this pasuk. So he says it comes from the phrase b'michsas nefashos. Tachosu al-haseh. So that's by the Korban Pesach. Okay, and I'm just going to read the translation here. So v'imimat habayis mios misev lakachu ushchino hakarov el beso b'michsas nefashos ish lefi achlo tachosu al-haseh. And if a house is too small for a lamb, he and his neighbor who is close to his house shall nekosa michsas. The michsas nefashos means take in proportion to the people. Ish lefi achlo tachosu al-haseh. According to that which each person eats, you should apportion the lamb. Okay. The weird thing about this translation is, the standard meaning of kosa is to cover. And in fact, I bet if you take, if you click on the dictionary, the BDB dictionary on Torah, on our pasuk, you'll get like a bazillion instances of kosa. Let's see. Hold on. Cover. Okay. So as you can see here, there's 153 instances of this word in Tanakh, okay, but Sadigon prefers to say it's coming from meches, or a michsa, which is a computation, which I think only appears twice in Tanakh. Yeah. Okay. So I don't know why he goes to that very, very strange word for it, but he seems to be learning it as a cunning person. I'm going to just go ahead and take a guess as to how this would be translated here. A cunning person apportions knowledge. Okay. So that's how he takes it. Okay. So again, that's a minority opinion, but that is a translation. And then equally strange is the Targum, which I don't know if this is like some sort of like mix up in manuscripts or something. But here, look at what it says. Bar nash arima machase yediasa. Okay, so that part's fine. A person who is cunning covers knowledge. V'libahun desachle sane yediasa. But the heart of fools hates knowledge, which is not at all what the Hebrew says. So either this is a very, very like, non-conservative translation, or the pasuk that the Targum was working off of had a different version, which is really weird. Never really seen something this weird before in the Targum. That's what it says. Okay. Our scroll says a clever person conceals knowledge, but the heart of fools proclaims foolishness. Is that exactly what we have? No, they have to say clever or cunning instead of cunning. And they say conceals. I actually like conceals better. Conceals knowledge. Yeah, okay, hold on. Rav Hirsch says a clever man keeps his knowledge discreet. Okay, so that's also concealing, but he's a little bit more interpretation there. But the heart of fools proclaims its foolishness. All right, that's a little bit of a strange, he makes it possessive, its foolishness. Okay, but I guess he's, all right, whatever. And then Alter says a shrewd man conceals what he knows, but the heart of dullards proclaims folly. Okay, I think these are similar enough that we can just swap these and take ours as primary here. Okay, so what are the questions? It's been 2 weeks. Been out of practice here. Yeah, tomorrow.
I guess like what is meant by concealing knowledge?
Okay, that's the main question here. What is meant by conceals knowledge? Okay. Yeah, Ariel.
Yeah, I guess what's the difference between a chacham and an aram in this context?
Okay, so let's just say let's lead with the arum since that's the main term. So what is the definition of arum? Okay, cunning person in this context, and then how might we differentiate him from say a chacham or any other like positive Mishleic archetype? Yeah, Michael.
How are these opposites?
Yeah, how are these opposites? Okay, and as you'll notice, a lot of things don't line up here, right? You've got Adam compared to a heart. Arum and Ksilim are not typically opposites. I can't say that they're never opposites, but I think recently we went through and we looked up all the we looked up a lot of cases where there was actually, let me just see if we had an Arum pasuk recently. Arum. Yeah, so we had one, Adam bayom yivada kaso, v'koze kalon, sorry, Evil bayom yivada kaso, v'koze kalon Arum. Yeah, fine. So we see Arum, and Arum is often contrasted with Pesi. So we see Arum, it's not exactly a problem here, but we do need to understand how it's the opposite. Das and Ivelis, cover versus proclaim. Some of them line up better than others, but we need to know how they're opposites here. Yeah, Ayala?
So what does the second half mean? And I guess specifically, what does it mean that it proclaims to proclaim foolishness? And also, why does it use the heart?
Okay, right. So what does it mean that the heart, that the heart of the fools proclaims foolishness? Okay, right. Like hearts don't proclaim, right? Yeah. And I'm going to just clarify here. Practically speaking, what does it mean? Like, what action is that? Yeah, Alex.
Is there a specific kind of knowledge that's being concealed, or is it all knowledge?
Okay, that's a great question. Okay, so that's going to be a key question, I think, also. All right, so what is it referring to all knowledge or a specific type of knowledge? Okay, Ariel.
Yeah, it's along the lines of Alex's question, but like, what's so special about hiding this knowledge?
Okay, so why does he hide the knowledge? Yeah, and then I'll just phrase this as the opposite as well. What would happen if he actually what would not hiding the knowledge mean, and what would happen as a consequence? Yeah, Isaiah?
And related to question 2,
Yeah.
but why does it say Adam Arum and not just Arum Kosa
Okay.
Das?
Right. And why does it say a cunning man instead of just a cunning man? Right, in Hebrew you can say that, not in English. Yeah, now this is an interesting question because either you have to think of this as it's saying Adam Arum instead of just Arum. In other words, let me think how to express this. In other words, it could be saying it as a decision about how to express Arum, or it could be saying it as a way to contrast with Lave, that the entire Adam of the Arum covers knowledge, conceals knowledge, whereas the heart of the fools proclaims foolishness. So in other words, you have to think about it from it is a decision that Shlomo made to write it that way, but what prompted the decision? Was it purely like how to express the concept, or was it in terms of the contrasting of the second half? Yeah, David.
Yeah, when we talk about proclaiming foolishness, is he proclaiming foolishness within the Arum, or is he proclaiming his own foolishness through his actions or whatever else his heart is doing?
What do you mean by within the Arum?
To be saying that the Arum, he's not talking, or he's concealing whatever it is there, he's a fool. Like he's proclaiming the Arum to be a fool. That's how I should have said it.
Oh, okay. Is he okay, right. So this is part of the, did we ask this question? No, we did not ask this question. So what foolishness is the heart of the Concealing, okay, proclaiming. Okay, and yeah, I mean, I think I'm not going to ask it the way you asked it, because you're asking, is he calling the Arum a fool? I don't think that fits into the Hebrew. So I'm just not going to put that. I mean, it's possible, but that would have to be like a stretch to interpret. But I will ask though, what is like I guess why is this called Evelis? Okay. Yeah, Isaiah.
I guess like, who are these people talking to? What's the situation that's happening?
What's the situation? Okay, yeah, let's put that at the top. What decision-making situation is this describing, if any? What specific decision-making? Right, so is this in general, or is this describing a specific situation? Yeah, Ariel?
Yeah, well, is there a difference between this case where the heart of fools proclaims foolishness versus a fool? A normal fool, meaning like,
right, meaning
like, why say the heart of fools? Meaning,
okay,
why not
right.
just say fool?
Okay, right. So why not just say fools proclaim foolishness? Yeah. All right, that's a good question. Okay, Michael.
This might not be a real question, but why not use an avil? Like if we're already talking about Ivela, right. It feels
yeah. No, I think that's a legitimate question here. I'm just trying to think whether we should let's see here. Let's just ask the question, what is the definition of ksil in this context? Okay. Why not avil? And then we'll also ask the question, which I don't know if someone already said, why is ksilin plural and heart? Actually, we'll put the heart thing over here. Again, it's a minor question, but we'll put it anyway. Why is ksilin plural and heart singular? Yeah, Tamar.
This is like a nuance maybe in these group of questions about the foolishness, but like I think then normally the definition of Ivelis is not like, it's not a type of speech, you know? So just like,
Okay.
how does that fit in with this idea of proclaiming foolishness? Like, what does that mean in terms of what we normally think of?
Okay,
Ivelis
right.
as?
So I'm going to say, is Ivelis being used as a type of like speech, or I guess I'm actually gonna leave it as what like what is the Ivelis? Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it as that. I hear your question though. Okay, do we have all the questions? I guess we have a question of what is the consequence, right?
I have a
of-
question.
Oh, sorry, Isaiah. Yeah, go ahead, Isaiah.
So is when he's speaking Ivelis, so is the content of his speech Ivelis, or is the speaking of it Ivelis?
Okay, I think that is Tamara. Is that what you were getting at?
It's a better way of putting it.
Okay. So, is the content of what he's saying being deemed Ivelis, or is the act of saying it the Ivelis? Right. In other words, I think you can even see this question from the opposites question here. Is it like a cunning person conceals knowledge, but the heart of fools proclaims it, and when he's proclaiming it, then we're characterizing it as Ivelis. Right. Yeah. Okay. And then I asked the question, which is, what is the consequence of the second half? Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and tack on to question number 2. What is meant by concealing knowledge? Practically speaking, how does one do this? Which again, I know this is we have this category question all the time, which is that the pasuk might not be teaching you how to do what it's saying. It might just be telling you that it's a good idea to do it. But for our purposes, we need to know how to do it in some way to apply the pasuk. Yeah, Tamar?
I guess the question of who is the audience, and I guess specifically,
Right.
like, is it a speaker who could choose to conceal knowledge, or is it someone else?
Okay, who is the audience of this pasuk? Is it addressed specifically to people who are in a speaking position, or even in a purely listening or receiving, I guess, receiving position? Yeah, Ariel?
Yeah, what makes something foolish? Or what are the criteria for something that's foolish?
Right. Okay, so I'm going to tack that on to the what is the foolishness question. By what criteria would we consider something to be Ivelis? Yeah, Devin?
Yeah, when the Urim is concealing and the conceal is proclaiming, are these their
Oh, you just froze.
own? This the Urim's own somebody.
Say it one more time.
Sorry, I know I'm cutting out a bit.
Yeah.
Okay, are these people concealing and proclaiming their own knowledge and foolishness, or somebody else's?
Okay. Right. Okay. So I'm going to add that to the first question, even though it could be added many places. Is this their own knowledge and foolishness that they are concealing or proclaiming, or someone else's? Okay. I feel like we've just about covered it, so I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste these questions into the chat as usual. Where's the chat? Okay, there's 1 through 5, and here is 6 through 11. Okay, so let us have our thinking minute, and then we will hopefully get some knowledge and not conceal it. Oh, you know what? We didn't ask that question. I think that's an important question, which is like, I know we said why is he hide the knowledge, but I'm just going to ask this as like the obvious question here, which is like, isn't knowledge something you want to spread, and then put a lot of exclamation points and question marks here because that's like the thing. Okay. Okay, looks like we got some ideas already here. Alex, go ahead.
My idea basically is kind of in line with basically when you have the kind of person who's an expert on a topic versus somebody that's new to a specific kind of knowledge. If you're actually knowledgeable on something, you'll like talk about it less, so to speak, as opposed to somebody who like just acquires knowledge and then they'll like run their mouth as if they're an expert when they're not, and then come off stupid inadvertently.
Okay. All right. So let's start that off, and then I think we can develop a little bit more, but I think that's a good start here. So this is it's describing the phenomenon, that's not how you spell phenomenon, of a person who is an expert and is more conservative when doling out knowledge versus someone who really doesn't know much, but immediately like blabs what they know in order to show to like, I guess, portray themselves as a knowledgeable person. So you're saying, Alex, that the consequence here is that the first guy is gonna look more knowledgeable, whereas the second guy is gonna look more foolish. That has to do with the perception, or were you just saying that as an example?
Yeah, basically the consequence being if you're not knowledgeable and you run your mouth, you'll come off more stupid than the person who knows what they're talking about but keeps to themselves.
Okay, so in other words, so the pasuk is aimed at someone who is trying to be viewed as knowledgeable, and warning them that the more they try to act that way without qualification, the more it will backfire. Yeah, I mean, let's just talk about why that's the case, because I think we're all familiar with the fact that that's the case. So why is it that the expert doesn't talk about as much and therefore looks more like an expert, and then why is it that the person who doesn't who doesn't know that much ends up looking like a fool? Yeah, Tamar?
I think there's like two types of reasons, maybe.
Sure.
One is I think that if you actually know something, you don't have to prove to other people that you know it.
Right.
You're just not like insecure that way. And so then it's you're not like jumping at opportunities to bring it up. Like, look how much I know about it. You know? And I think there is also just like the general humility of not feeling like an expert because like you watched a video or something,
Right.
Like, the general like having a sense of the scope of what you actually know and what there is.
Right. Okay. So let me just restate those two things. I think those are both good reasons. That first of all, there is I don't know. I know exactly what you're talking about. There's a certain type of like the eagerness to show off what you know, like raises the question of like, who exactly you're trying to convince, and shows that the person is really insecure about their knowledge. Yeah, I don't know what that is. I guess it might be simple enough that I think we all have felt that way enough to be able to recognize it in others. So it doesn't really matter if we understand for our purposes, like how that actually works, but it's just, all that matters is that people can tell when you're trying to like build yourself up. I think that's one reason. And then the other thing you were saying is that one of the things that you would hope comes with knowledge is a humility in the face of that knowledge, and like, and that humility is going to express itself in like, just this awareness of how little you actually know. I think another, Ariel, you want to have another answer to how this works?
Well, I more have a question, because I agree with Tamara. In fact, I had a very similar thought. But like, let's say there are times where like you heard something very cool, and like you see that there's a value in sharing it, but you may not necessarily know enough about it to, it's more of like a conversation starter versus like how, I mean, is there a trap where you can fall in?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I think that you can tell how the person is presenting the limited knowledge that they have as to whether they're trying to sell the image of an expert or not. Like if I mention some sort of like magazine article that I read that said some cool fact that's relevant, I think it should be clear from my delivery that I'm not that I'm not trying to like sell myself as an expert on that topic, but like you could tell when someone is trying to do that. And I think that brings up the connects to the point that I was going to make, which is that one of the reasons why this backfires oftentimes is that sometimes if it works, it'll cause it to backfire. In other words, if you start saying stuff and that initial piece of information that you proclaim does convince a certain number of people that you're an expert, they're going to ask you more questions, and that's going to expose your ignorance. Because either you'll get something wrong, or you'll make something up and then find out, or people will see that you're making something up, or that you're avoiding it. In other words, the success, even the success that you're going for, when you like get the person in the trap and they think that you're an expert, that itself could like lead to realizing that you're a to people realizing that you don't really know what you're talking about.
So it's like our average politician.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Okay.
Can I add another way?
Yeah, sure.
So maybe like, because it uses the word RM, right? So like a tricky person who's like knows people's emotional states, kind of is, I think, what we said in the past, maybe. So saying that like they'll recognize that if they give everyone all information up front, and then the people are kind of gonna like the people aren't gonna be ready, and then they're gonna not think they're an expert, as opposed to if they're like dropping the pieces when they think the people are ready for them, then people are going to be able to actually recognize on their level that they know what they're talking
that's
about.
A good way. That's a good justification for the term RM here. That RM is someone who does, since you said it, then I don't feel like I'm just plugging this in. So I'm going to say I mean, we probably said it recently in that pasuk 15. What was it? 16. I mean, that RM is someone who has knowledge of how people's emotions affect their decision making, and that's why it could be used for good or for bad. So like the Russia or the Nachash will use their knowledge of psychology to manipulate people, but a person who's on their way to becoming a Chacham will use their knowledge of their own psychology to realize when they're going to be under the influence of an emotion and to distance themselves from it and not be like duped by it. So what Ayala is saying is, let's say, we're saying that the pasuk is talking to someone who does want to come across as having the reputation of being knowledgeable. So he'll realize, oh, I need to like, manage the way that people are going to respond to my knowledge by not like trying to overload them by saying, by depicting myself as someone really, really smart or whatever, and being like judicious in what I say, and then I'll get my result. So I think that's a good addition. Yeah, David?
Something to Alex's original.
Yeah. Oh no. Froze again.
Okay, and I think there's also cut out.
Yep, you cut out. Start again.
Okay, for the observer on the flip side, that if they see someone who's talking a lot, that they should know if someone just spouting out a whole bunch of stuff, that's a person who doesn't really know, and person who's keeping quiet, like watch out for that guy.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Right. So in other words, I feel like this is a move we've made a lot in our Monday Night Mishlei Shiur over the summer. You could use this as a diagnostic tool, right? that if you see someone spouting a ton of knowledge, then you can bet on the fact that they're probably a fool. There's an English proverb like this, and there's a Chazal proverb. Let me see if I can find it really quickly. Anyone know the English proverb? You could just say it if you know it.
Is it that an empty jug rattles the loudest?
Yeah, empty jug rattles the loudest. Yeah. So I think that is I think that actually, I don't know where it came from originally, but that definitely is in Chazal. Let me see if I can find it really quickly. Oh my goodness. Okay, I remember, hold on. It was freezing here. Kish Karya, I think is the Karya is how it ends in Aramaic. Let me see if I could find it. If not, it's basically the same proverb that my mom said, but okay, let's see if I could find it in, oh my goodness, there's too many. Hold on. Okay, I'm not gonna be able to find it here. Yeah, but basically the idea of both proverbs, oh, it's gonna say all the Reish Lakish, just okay, fine. It's not gonna okay, that I mean, let me try one more thing. Hold on. Just look on Google. Kish Karya. Yeah. Nope. Is that it? Yeah. Oh, there's a Wikipedia article on it. How nice. Eastera Bilagina Kish Karya. Where does it say that? What's the source of this? Okay, so a coin in a, where's this, in a jug will rattle, it'll rattle a lot. And so the Wikipedia says it, who pitkam ba'aramit shemofia b'talmud habavli, pirusha miluli shel pitkam matbea b'kad kori kish. Klomar marish yoser mikad male matbeo. So in other words, if you have a jug filled with coins, it won't rattle at all. But if you have a jug with one coin, it'll rattle a lot. So in other words, if someone is rattling a lot, if they're like speaking a lot, then you can tell that they don't have that much knowledge. But if they're filled with knowledge, then they won't make that much noise about it. So similar idea. Okay, I think that's a good approach. Let's leave that now as being done. We can always add on to it if someone has more nuances. Ariel, you're up.
I think Tamar was actually before me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and
well, my idea was kind of similar to Alex's. Maybe I will say it actually.
Okay, sure. You can go ahead and say it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about it similarly, but just in the angle of not like only bringing up their knowledge when it's relevant, I guess.
Okay. Right. Okay. So I'm going to add that here as well. So tomorrow, I think that's a good point as well, which is the cunning person will only bring up knowledge when it is relevant and when it will be, and more importantly, I'm going to say this for the arm part, and more importantly, when it will be perceived as relevant. Okay, that's why you need to know their emotions, because it might be that the knowledge is relevant, but if you see the person just trying to bring it up and like cram it into the situation without any regards for how people are going to take it, then they're not going to be looked at as intelligent. So let's say the fools will like indiscriminately spout their knowledge, even when the situation doesn't call for it, and even when the what do you call it? The people are not receptive. Yeah, that's interesting. See, so this could be an interesting thing also. This kind of strays into the territory of Isaiah and Tamar's question of, is it being called foolishness because of the content or because of the decision to say it? So here, the way that we're trending right now is that it could be that this is actual knowledge, but the fact that they're just like spouting off is means that it's not going to be received as knowledge. So so it's yeah. So in other words, even if what they're saying is true and intelligent, it's not gonna land as knowledge. Yeah. Okay. Good. That was good detail. Okay, Ariel.
It's funny because I was thinking along the lines of Tamar actually.
Okay, go ahead. Segue.
So yeah, I mean, like there are definitely times where there are certain things you have to withhold because it could be sensitive. It could be, I don't know. Here's like an example, extreme example is like, let's say you're at war, and like, you're obviously not gonna, you're gonna limit, the, people who you discuss strategy with.
Right.
Because, it's a very sensitive information. But I think, but what makes someone in this context, what makes someone an arm versus a Ksil is one who's able to control his temptation from saying it.
Yeah.
Like a fool, like for whatever reason, it could be an emotion or it could be whatever it is. Like the thing that he's saying isn't foolish, but it's the fact that he said it is foolish.
Okay, so I think that's a good explanation of Arum. Tell me if this is what you're saying. Okay, what makes this person an Arum is that they exercise self-control and don't allow their desire to share what they know to warp their perception of whether it should be shared. In other words, a person might have knowledge that is not vital, but because of whatever emotional temptation they have, they'll allow that emotion to convince them that, oh, I have to share this knowledge right now, and that could be like to their disadvantage. Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, I like that. I'm going to cluster that with the same actually, I'm not sure. It might be a different idea. I'll keep it a space in between. Okay, good. Do you have more, Ariel, or is that what you were going to say?
I seems very simple, right? I guess if
it's good. I mean,
answers all the questions.
And then it would say that the heart of the Ksilim, the Ksilim, lack that quality. Yeah, I think I would want to understand a little bit. Okay. Oh, here's a possibility here. Okay, I'm going to go out on a limb here. We've had a definition of ksil before. This is not the universal definition, but I think we got this from Rבינו Yona on Mishlei 122. That we said that the ksil is the hardened, the veteran pleasure seeker. Okay, let me just see if that's if this is Rבינו Yona on 122. At the end, he says, Ksilim, him bali ha'pu'ulus haraos ve'ovrim aviros lamalos mish'alos einehem be'inyane hana'osam v'ta'anugehem. He says it's people who are, addicted to these bad actions, and they violate, they transgress in order to fulfill what their eyes desire in matters of pleasure and enjoyment. And I think the reason why we call them a veteran pleasure seeker is because we combined this with another Rבינו Yona on 1:4 that talked about how a youth can become a ksil if he goes a long enough time pursuing his pleasures. So the reason why I'm bringing this in here is, and again, I'm not getting this organically from the pasuk. I'm just like trying out the idea based on what Ariel is saying. Ariel is saying that the Arum is able to separate themselves from their desire enough to say, okay, I desire this, but maybe my desire is making me think that it's a good idea to share this information right now, and it's really not. Maybe if you're a ksil, if you're habituated into constantly, immediately indulging your desires, that itself will prevent you from being able to get that distance, and that will cause you to make these snap decisions. Like I'll give an example of this. And yeah, this is a political example. So I'll just use the word alleged. That isn't one of the, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't one of the things that that Trump is one of the allegations against Trump that he not only like did he take a bunch of like what do you call it, classified documents or whatever, but that he was like bragging to someone on a golf course about these top secret military plans about having to do with like Iran or something like that, so whether or not that's true, it's a good example because you take someone like Trump who clearly has no self-control in other areas, and like it's going to make it very hard for such a person who's used to like immediately indulging in whatever desire for immediate pleasure they have. It's going to be very hard for them to even separate themselves out from their desires enough to say, maybe my desire is convincing me that I need to share this information right now, so that might be why I use the ksil, as the person here. In other words, let me just flesh this out a little bit. I'm going to type this out here. Is the reason why this is being contrasted? Sorry, this explains why the Arum is being contrasted with the ksil, who is habituated into giving into his immediate desires and can't and is incapable of of like separating himself from his emotions enough to evaluate whether they're skewing his judgment about sharing his idea. By the way, the thing that's going to suffer the most today is my writing. I cannot write very well. I tried when I'm sick, so that's very unclear, but pardon me. Yeah, Ariel?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if this is what you're saying, but like the way we just defined the conceal, meaning like, because I was saying before that it was him giving this knowledge that makes him foolish, but you're saying that no, he's like a fool in other areas as well.
Oh yeah, you're right. That is different from what you're saying. Yeah, you're saying that what makes him foolish is proclaiming the knowledge. Yeah, I think the reason why I like my idea better is I think that, and again, this is not from the pasuk, but I think what we've seen many times is the person who lacks self-control in speech is usually the avil. So the fact that it's talking about a conceal, to me, like, is answered by my explanation right now, that we're talking about someone who like lacks self-control when it comes to indulging in pleasures,
right. So I was gonna add on to what I guess what you were saying, because I was thinking I guess the question is like, this would, like, meaning he would only convey this knowledge or this information once there's like an immediate pleasure that he would get out of it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I also have there's an example of someone I know who was in a position where I think they just got a new job, and like I think they were trying to impress me by like showing that they knew like a lot of private information in the job, and like at the first couple times I was like, I didn't realize this was going to be a trend, so I kind of like just politely like tried to change the conversation. Then I realized like, no, they're divulging information that like they shouldn't be divulging, but it was clear that they were doing just out of this eagerness to like impress, and like that so you can see that if you have a person, this is where the politician thing comes in, I think, is that like a politician whose whole career is centered around getting people to like be on their side, and indulging in anything that's going to like up their popularity, like, might fall prey to this of like just giving in to any immediate thing that it like lets them, that helps them to get ahead, even if they shouldn't share the knowledge. Okay. All right. Very good, Ariel. I like that one. That is sufficiently, now it feels like it's sufficiently different from Alex and Tamar, because Alex and Tamar are really talking more about someone trying to cultivate an image as someone who is a chacham, and Ariel is talking more about like how advisable it is to actually share this information, or how destructive it is, regardless of like what self-image they want. Okay, that's good. Okay, Michael. Yeah. Oh yes, David.
Also, going along with what you were saying, I think there's also comes a certain point where the conceal here enjoys showing how dumb he can be and still get away with it. And I think as far as these people being personalities, they just go further and further and further, where the cunning person likes to be able to be like, he can really see like anything. He just does not break. And I think for the conceal on the opposite end, he does enjoy at a certain point showing how foolish he is. I think he's just pushed himself further in both directions.
Yeah, when you say showing how foolish he is, which do you mean? What do you mean by that? Showing how foolish? Like, are you saying
that he can do foolish actions, and I mean whether there are consequences or not? I think people do to some extent enjoy showing that they did something really, really dumb, and it was a funny situation, they got away with it, whatever it may wind up being. But I think there is a certain temptation to do dumb things once you start identifying yourself as a conceal.
Okay, that might be a true statement. I don't know how. It's definitely not relevant to Alex and Tamar's idea, because Alex and Tamar, I think, both are presupposing that this person is like oblivious to the very fact that they're proclaiming their foolishness. In Ariel's case, I guess I can kind of see it. If they are giving away classified information or information that like they know they shouldn't be like divulging, then there might be like a risk factor. I'm not convinced that it is a general quality of this of the conceal as we're explaining him here. I have to think about it. Maybe there's a different interpretation of the pasuk. I'm not seeing it as fitting squarely into any of these ideas.
Okay.
Yeah, if you think about it though, maybe it's possible that your intuition is coming from a different interpretation of the pasuk, and then maybe if you get that interpretation, then it'll click into place. Okay, Michael.
So this isn't such a different idea, but I was very focused on why arum is in singular and ksilim is in plural.
Okay.
So so I was imagining like any sort of like learning situation or something where like, but there's a group learning.
Yeah.
I was imagining as like a pyramid, whereas you're gonna have like the one person at the top who like everybody kind of knows, like, oh, he knows the most, whether it be like the teacher and something like that. Then you have some people below him who like people know are knowledgeable, and then you have people at the bottom who like they just don't know much. They're really just there to learn. So if someone who's at the bottom who doesn't really know much asks like a really good question that maybe they're not ready to hear the answer, the person at the top is going to understand what they can say and what they should conceal. Whereas the conceal is going to want to just like spout off information just so they'll seem smart, which that's what we were discussing before. So they're going to want to like they're going to want to seem smart. So they're not going to have this thought processes of, oh, I'll push off this. They shouldn't hear this yet. So they'll just say it.
Yeah.
So the audience I was thinking was going to be one of the people in that middle level, so the ksilim. So like kind of telling them like, you don't necessarily need to do this, like recognize what the arum does, and then you can be like that. And then it says lave because they're acting on their emotion. I don't know if this works in like biblical stuff, but I was thinking of like heart is like your emotions, so they're kind of acting on their emotions. Yeah. And then I couldn't really figure out the adam part. That's what I was stuck on. I was thinking maybe it has something to do with like maybe we're not trying to define this person as an arum, we're just saying he's acting with cunning. And maybe, because I was thinking chacham would fit better for my idea, so I was thinking maybe it says adam to say, no, this isn't actually an arum, this is just someone who's acting with cunning.
Okay, so I think I can answer for you why it's arum as opposed to chacham, but I don't know if I can explain yet why it's adam. But let me try restating the idea and tell me if this is an accurate statement. So this pasuk is addressed to anyone who is in a position to share knowledge. Okay, the arum who has a greater perspective on people's readiness to receive the knowledge in a healthy way, and is therefore in a position to be like judicious about how that knowledge is dished out. The ksilim lack that perspective and will like share whatever they know indiscriminately, regardless of of how well it might be received or what the consequences are. So far, is that good, or is that am I hijacking the idea in a different direction?
No, that fits. Okay,
because I'm getting this from the pyramid. I don't mean the pyramid scheme, the pyramid mushal. So the reason why it uses arum is because, and I'm getting this from what we have before, so I'll just tack this on here. This is why it uses arum, because this person has to know people's emotions as well, right? Enough to see how to assess how they'll receive the knowledge. Okay, now the last part of your idea I didn't get as clearly. So the leiv ksilim yikra ivelis. Sorry. The pasuk is addressed to people in the middle, you said. Could you just say that one more time? Explain one more time.
So, okay, so the people in the middle. So once I know this isn't the usual way to read a Mishlei pasuk, but I didn't see this as opposites as much as like a chain. So once the arum conceals his knowledge, that gives room for everybody's going to look to the people in the middle now. So the audience is the middle, telling them, look at you, instead of looking at what you want to do in your heart, look at what the arum is doing and try to, model yourself after him.
Okay, so this pasuk is aimed at the people in the middle who face the temptation to act like the ksilim. And this is where there's not overlap of your idea, but overlap of the phenomena with the other ideas for the reasons we said in the other explanations, right? That's why you'd want to share your knowledge. and advising this person to look to the Arum as a role model, Yeah. Let me think about that for 1 second here. So I think the thing that I am, okay, I'm going to say an objection and then I'll say why I object to my objection. And then you decide whether this is a valid objection. I feel like I don't see the consequences here. Now the objection to my objection is, you could say, well, we don't see the consequences in any case, but I think we do, because with Alex and Tamar, it's kind of alluded to in the fact that like the Conceal wants to look cunning or clever, but to everyone, it's going to be evident that they're spouting Yvelis, so that's alluded to here. And then in Ariel's, this person wants to convey knowledge, but by conveying that knowledge, they're really conveying Yvelis. So I'd be satisfied with like just pointing to where the consequences are like alluded to in this. Then I feel like this is, I'm not objecting to the way you're interpreting the parts of the pasuk, but I feel like there's something like lacking in the punch. Yeah, Tamar?
Maybe just like a direction for that, and
Sure.
then also maybe another comment or question on this.
Yeah.
Is I think the consequence, you have to explain how this hurts the Conceal.
Yeah.
The consequence is that it's damaging.
Well, I'm sorry, hold on a second. Just to be clear, according to Michael, you have to explain how it hurts the Conceal, but specifically how it is a disincentive to the person who is in the middle, who is tempted to act like the Conceal, just to put it more precisely.
Yeah, okay, so maybe I'll say my other thing first. I thought that when Michael was saying the middle, he meant middle level of knowledge. Like, there's an expert, there's people who know some stuff, and then there's some ignorant person asking a question. This is the middle level of knowledge who might be the Conceals. But I don't know, Michael, is that what you meant, or is that?
Yeah, I'd say it's pretty accurate. Yeah, the middle is like people who know, but they're not like ignorant.
Okay.
But they're also not experts.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Okay, fine. That aside, I guess. I think the type of damage that happens, the immediate consequence is like, it's bad for the question asker to be hearing this stuff that the Conceal is saying. And I think that's the direction that I would take to try and figure out how that harms the Conceal.
Okay, that's interesting. It's bad for the question asker to hear the stuff that the Concealim are saying.
Yeah, like that's why the Aram's not saying it.
Okay, can you give me an example? Either of you give me an example of this. Like, I know we're already working.
I mean,
on an
I think
example,
one type of thing,
yeah.
I don't know, maybe this is not a good type of example.
Yeah.
But like if somebody has some like, let's say like a 10-year-old has like a metaphysical question.
Yeah.
Like, and the answer is just going to be like bad for them. Like they're not going to understand it. It's going to like freak them out or whatever, like something. And so you shouldn't just jump in and give the most accurate answer you can. You should think about their development and try and give them something that will be helpful for them.
Yeah, that's a good example. I have another example also, but I'll call him Michael first. Yeah.
The first thought I had when I read this pasuk was Masim or Kava, and like how you shouldn't say it to anybody. So that's what I was thinking. Yeah,
if I had to guess, I'd guess that that's what the Meiri is going to say, but we'll find out, I guess. What I was going to give a much less weighty example, which is, I don't know if you've ever met people who are very bad at teaching board games or games in general, that they immediately try to convey to the person all of the complications of the game, and they'll like raise questions that that the beginner's not even going to ask, and does that actually fit in here? That, in other words, what's making it foolish is ultimately, I think what we're all saying is it's going to be foolish because the knowledge is not going to have the intended effect. Like in the case of Masmer cover, you're going to want them to have like an accurate understanding of these philosophical ideas, and in my case, you want them to play the game.
It's like the lack of strategy and being able to explain.
Yes, the strategy games. Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can't. Yeah. I don't know what else I'm feeling is bothering me about the idea, because it does not look like there's anything wrong with it. So I'm going to set it aside for now, and we'll see if maybe when I restate it, then I'll see where there's a gap in my mind, or maybe I'm just not getting something. Okay.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
What exactly is the difference between the Chacham and the Urim? I know you were explaining it, but like which one is above the other?
So the way we're explaining it is I wouldn't even call it above. I would say it's two different qualities. The Chacham sees the consequences of an action, and the Arum understands how your emotions can distort your thinking. So I would say, if anything, you need to be an arum in order to be a chacham, but it's not like it's two stages of development that are like of the same quality. In other words, like if you're so caught up in your emotions that, you know, if you're very easily again, in Mishlei, the Orma is what we want to give the Pesi, right? Orma lana dasu muzima. Pesi is someone who's seduced by their own emotions. So you need to get them out of that cloud where like they immediately just get fooled by whatever they're feeling at the time. Then they can develop into a chacham, you know. But it's not like the chachma builds onto the arum. It's like a prerequisite. Orma is like a prerequisite for chacham, but they're two different qualities. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, let's look at, unless anyone has any other ideas, let's look at what some of the Mefarshim say, okay? I can't remember if I have an idea on this. I did not have time to prepare one, but we'll check if, actually, let me just check and see if I have an idea on this now in my notes. And if not, then we'll look at the Mefarshim. Let's look at ideas in Mishlei 1.
Can I ask a mythological question?
Sure.
And you do not have to answer this now if you don't want to.
Sure.
But because I feel like I have like another like a Darth Nisser approach, but sometimes I get confused about like what like what's the line between Darth Nisser and not.
Yeah.
So what I guess my question is, what are the criteria for a Darth Nisser approach in Mishlei?
Okay, sure. So I will hold off on that question for now.
Okay.
Until we look at the Darth Nisser in Meiri. Okay, and if I forget, then just remind me.
Okay, I knew there was one. Okay.
Okay, so it looks like I did write something on this. Again, these are from the old notes. Cunning communication. So what did I write? An arum is a person who has an intuitive understanding of the human psyche and is in tune with the emotions of the people around him. The point of this pasuk is to teach that Orma, cunning, is an asset in all communication, no matter how noble or ignoble the content of his speech may be. A chacham who uses speech for the lofty purpose of conveying knowledge will require Orma in order to gauge the emotions of his audience. If the audience is not psychologically ready to hear the knowledge, they might reject it, distort it, or misapply it to the detriment of themselves and others. Even the fool who spouts foolishness will be harmed by his lack of Orma, Due to his obliviousness to the emotional reactions of his audience, he will engage in speech which will provoke and offend other people and will expose him to harm and destruction. Okay, so you see what I did here? I think this is what I was thinking. I have no way of knowing, but I'm trying, you know, one of the things I often advertise about Mishlei is like Mishlei doesn't really care about why you're getting chachma. It's saying that no matter what, chachma will help you in whatever your endeavors are. So here, let's say you are proclaiming foolishness. What I'm trying to say is that even if you want to proclaim foolishness, like if you want to, like, let's say, be talking about something that is nonsense, or you want to be like a TikTok influencer or whatever, you know, and like you're just doing stuff that has no substance, you still need this quality, you know, and you have to have the quality of Orma, of cunning, of knowing the psyche of your audience, and not just feeling that the intrinsic worth of the thing you're conveying or who you are is going to somehow like magically make people make it have the right effect. You know, just to go back to putting on the old AP English hat here, that the three what do you call it? Why am I blanking on the three rhetorical blanks? Ethos, pathos, and logos. I forgot what they're called. Appeals. The three rhetorical appeals are ethos, pathos, and logos. That the three ways that you persuade people are ethos, which is who you are and what their perception of who you are plays a role in persuading people. Pathos is the emotions that you evoke in the other person, and then logos is the content or the ideas or the logic. And I think that there is a mistake that people feel. Many times they put too much weight on the logos or the ethos and not the pathos, not really thinking about how this is emotionally going to impact the person. So they feel that the biggest mistake is people think that people are going to be convinced by the information itself, or people think that they're going to be convinced by who is speaking, just who the speaker is. I don't mean to just reduce this to the pathos logos thing. I just wanted to like supplement it with that. But it looks like when I interpreted this pasuk, I was trying to say, by saying even the fool who spouts foolishness, I was trying to make it where the fool is kind of like what David was saying. He's trying to spout foolishness. He's trying to like proclaim his foolishness, but even he is going to need Orma in order to succeed. I think the question I'd have the objection I'd have to this is the same objection I had to Michael's approach initially, which is that I don't see the consequences. I guess what I was trying to do is, I guess I'm trying to make the bad decision. See, okay, hold on a second. In Alex and Tamar's and Ariel's approaches, the Mishlei is alluding to the consequence with the word Ivelis. Right, it's saying that like what's bad about this is that it's going to be proclaiming foolishness, and if you want to look smart, you don't want to be seen as being proclaiming foolishness, or if you want to convey knowledge, you don't want to do it in a way where it's foolishness. I think what I was doing in this idea is I'm putting the emphasis on the proclaiming, like this indiscriminate, like just sharing of it, or maybe we're going to see in a second that a lot of the Mefarshim are saying that their heart is proclaiming, as opposed to like making a decision about whether it's a good idea to share this or not. So I think that's where I was trying to go. Again, I did this so long ago, I don't really know what I was thinking. Okay, let's see what the Mefarshim say. Okay, so I think the Metzudas David has a very straightforward approach, as he usually does. He says, Kosedas, Af divrei chachma lo yigala ki'im laha ru'yim la. Even words of chachma, of wisdom, he will only reveal to the people who are worthy of it. And the heart of Ksilim, Misha Libo Lev Ksilim, someone who has the heart of fools, Yikra Vifarsim Af Divrei Ivelis. He will proclaim and publicize even words of foolishness. Okay, so what's he getting at with the even? Right? I think the first half is easy to see because it's saying that, you might think, like I emphasized in the questions, that, well, if it's foolishness, of course he'll conceal it. But if it's chachma, then he'll share it no matter what. And this is saying, no, even with chachma, he's only going to share with people who are worthy of it, meaning people who are ready for it or who will use it properly or receive it properly. So that part I get. But someone whose heart is the heart of fools will proclaim even words of foolishness. What is he getting at with the even?
Is he saying that he's going to try to rationalize why the foolish thing that he's saying is not foolish but proper?
So I'm not sure if he's saying that, or if, in other words, even that is a level. Like, in order to rationalize, then you have to recognize that the thing needs to be rationalized. But I get the impression that he's saying that, like, this guy doesn't even realize that it's foolishness, and he's just going to publicize it, no matter what.
So what's the question on that? That's just seems like he
what's the idea?
Everything is, like he has no boundaries.
Yeah, but what's the idea though? What's the chiddush? Yeah, Tamar?
This is maybe like a slightly weak speculation, but for the even,
yeah,
like when you're gonna speak, right? So you can, something might give you pause, and it might be, if you're sophisticated, it might be like the nuances of how the other person's gonna take it. Yeah. But at least you should be stopped by the content.
Right.
You're like, wait, let me think about this. Is this really something that's valuable to say? Is it foolishness?
Right.
So this guy has like no filter.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right. Okay. Hold on. I have a good example of this. I'm going to use this example, and this is not evaluating the person as a whole, but I was listening to a podcast. One of the podcasts I listened to, I guess this will count as the book recommendation, even though it's not a book, is a podcast I listened to. It's called The Search Engine by PJ Vogt. And this was an episode called July 21st, What's Going On with Elon Musk? So what he does is he goes and he traces, the history of Elon Musk and how there was a timeline, there was a time period where Elon Musk was like, respected. And what the podcast does is it goes through his whole Twitter career, like in terms of how he used Twitter. And at what point was like the point where he, where like things went downhill. So he gives this example where, I don't know how many of you remember this, but there was the thing where, like, in Thailand, then there were a bunch of the the boys, and it was like a Boy Scout thing, but they were trapped in the cave that flooded, and the whole world like was watching the story, and the whole thing, they made a great movie out of it. I forgot what the movie was called. and like everyone was trying to figure out how to like rescue these boys who were trapped and who were like slowly like starving and like suffocating to death, So Elon Musk made this proposition, which was seemed to be like respectable, that I'm going to invent a submarine that is going to go through and like save them, So like a lot of people like applauded him for that. And then they interviewed one of the divers who was actually like on the scene, who was like trying to like actually like figure out ways to like send divers in to get the boys. And they said, what do you think of like Elon Musk's idea? And the diver said something like, indicating that he thought it was a bad idea. He said it in a vulgar way, And so Elon Musk, it hit his ego. And what did he do? Is he tweeted that this guy is a pedophile. Okay. A totally baseless accusation. And he tweeted it, And then of course the whole story shifted onto like Elon Musk, like trying to retaliate against this guy by like making a baseless accusation. And then I think the guy sued him or something like that, or tried to sue him. But then the consequence was that it like caused Tesla's shares to take a nosedive, And like this was on this podcast, they identified this was the first like unhinged tweet, So the reason why I'm bringing this up is that the way that the Metzudas David seems to be taking this is we're talking about a person who's publicizing it because they have no filter, not like Alex and Tamara was saying, where they're publicizing it because they want to look smart. Here we're talking about a thing where like the Ksil has like this, these thoughts and feelings that that they just have no filter about. And the way Tamara was saying it now is that like, the content should stop you. Like, in other words, he should have realized like, okay, I'm about to make a totally baseless accusation that it's going to be clear to everybody that I'm doing this because of my ego getting hit. And I'm going to tweet it out to millions of people or whatever, and he just did not stop to think. And he just like, it went straight from his mind to his fingers, I guess, because he's typing, And I think that's what a lot of the Mefarshim are going to say here with the heart thing. Let me see if I can find someone who says this. Yeah, let's look at Rבינו Yona, even though Rבינו Yona has a different, oh my goodness, once again, hold on. I think this is, I'm going to read from my good Rבינו Yona. I think Rבינו Yona says this for the second half, but he has a different idea for the first half. Hold on. All right, so I'm reading from the Torah Chaim Rבינו Yona. He says, yeah, this one says, Diber b'midas hatznius. Okay, ours says anivus. Both of them mean modesty. Okay, but he says, Amar ki hachacham gam tzidkosav uma'asav hatovim yasir. The chacham will conceal. Oh, this is totally different than what any of us said. He will conceal his acts of righteousness and his good deeds, even though they bring glory to the person who does them. Inyan hashakasuv, as it is stated in Micha, walk modestly with your God, walk with humility with your God. Okay, v'lev ksilim yikra iveles, haksil, the fool, gam le'ivalto lo yasir, he will not even conceal his foolishness. Afal pishu gnuso, even though it degrades him. He will proclaim it and make it known to everybody. And it says the heart of Ksilim, it does not say the mouth of Ksilim, that as soon as the foolishness occurs to his mind, he will immediately declare it. Okay. So Rבינו Yona is saying that the first half, we've all been saying that it's talking about like the content of knowledge you have. I don't know where Rבינו Yona gets that it's talking about righteous actions, because the pasuk says he will conceal knowledge. It doesn't say he'll conceal righteousness. Yeah, Isaiah, you have a.
Yeah, I mean, what does righteousness really have to do with being an arm? Also, like that doesn't seem like the right person.
If it said something like tzaddik, kosa da'as, then maybe I could get on board with the fact that like the knowledge it's talking about is the stuff is the righteousness. I don't know where Rבינו is getting this from, but let's just pause for a second. The second half is what I was trying to say for the Metzudas David, that the reason why it says his heart will conceal, proclaim the foolishness is it goes straight from his mind out his mouth. Like there's no filter at all, you know. I think the Meiri, the Meiri says something similar here. Oh, so this is also different. He says this is a warning to a person to not be quick to execute his thoughts in action ad yarich hamitun b'hisbonenus, until he has lengthy deliberation of analysis, v'yavi machshatu l'matzreif, and he brings his thoughts into the crucible, like he filters, he sifts through his plans to see whether there's anything bad in them. Adam aram mikose das, klomar af machshava hamunachas b'das, even machshava, even like strategic thinking, I guess, that is called here knowledge, and that is not caused by anger and wrath and retaliation, but by deliberate thinking about something, about his affairs. Nevertheless, he will conceal it in his heart until he brings it to the crucible. So he's saying keeping it covered, not in the sense of withholding it. He's saying I don't know what the better term for cover here would be, but he's saying like don't act on it, like keep it under wraps. That's keeping it under wraps means keeping it secret. He's saying though, also he's focusing on action. He's saying like he does not act on it yet until he like really thinks on it. So what does it mean that the heart of the mind of the fools will proclaim foolishness? That even before the full development of the thought, he will declare it verbally. And even in thoughts of foolishness, he will immediately carry it out in action. Yeah, see, I don't know why he's focusing on action. Similar question to the Yona. Yeah, David?
Okay, this is back to my own thought from before. It just reminded me of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was thinking back to just these personalities and like the Adam Arun, that I think say with someone who's like a cunning personality, that he may go too far within the tendency to hide things, and to the point where like, okay, you should be to some extent hiding things and not just displaying everything. Yet at the same time, I think that can at a certain point become a good in this person's mind. And then they do wind up hiding things that should be shared. And then.
So are you saying,
yeah.
Sorry, are you saying then that the first half is saying a bad
negative
decision? Oh, negative.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then
okay.
I take both sides as a negative.
Okay.
There's just two different personalities that could wind up in similar negatives. And then with the Conceal, that he's then having his fun of being a Conceal and going down his personality of showing his foolishness.
Okay, so the pasuk is outlining two opposite pitfalls. Okay, the Arum gets so caught up in his analysis about the appropriateness of sharing something that he ends up concealing even knowledge which is beneficial to share. Right. So the example of this, I know I write about this a lot, and actually it's not a lot. I've written about it twice, but it feels like a lot because I just wrote about this. The Rבינו Bachya ibn Pekudeh example, which I will read because it's better to hear from him. Shout out to Michael for reminding me that I wrote this because otherwise I wouldn't have gone back and read it. So Rבינו Bachya ibn Pekudeh, the author of Chovos Ha'Levavos, says, this actually fits in very well. He says, so he was thinking about not writing his book, Chovos Ha'Levavos, but then he says, when I then decided to relieve myself of the burden of this toilsome task and give up my plan of composing this work, I again suspected my soul of having chosen tranquility to dwell in the abode of laziness and peace and quiet. I fear that perhaps this decision to abandon the project stemmed from the desire for pleasure, and that this was what had inclined me to the way of peace and tranquility, to decide to abandon this in order to sit in the company of laziness. Now, this is the part that I wanted to read that fits into what David is saying. I knew that many works of intelligence were lost due to fear, and many losses were caused by concern. I remember the saying, part of caution is not to be overly cautious. I told myself, if every person who ever composed a good work or whoever taught the upright and proper path had waited until all his wishes were fulfilled, no person would ever have uttered a word after the prophets, whom God had chosen as his agents and strengthened with his divine help. If every person who had wished to attain all good qualities but was unable to attain them had abandoned whatever he could attain of them, then all human beings would be devoid of all good and lacking all excellences. They would have been perpetually pursuing after false hopes. The path of righteousness would have been desolate, and the abodes of kindness would have been abandoned. But that's the part here. Part of caution is to not be overly cautious. So David is describing the Arum, thinks to himself, okay, I have to be careful, and like maybe I'm doing this because of a certain emotion, or maybe like this, people won't be ready for it. He's overly cautious, and then he ends up just concealing all the knowledge, and then it doesn't get anywhere. Yeah, David, do you want to add to that?
Oh, I was just going to clarify your understanding of what I said, notwithstanding.
Okay,
I was
sure.
in a slightly different aspect of where it was coming from. I was saying that it could be his concealing things. He might even know that it's a good idea to share this thing, but he has a certain emotion of being one who just hides everything. And that might be, aside from the emotion then blocking he's not even starting to think in the first place. He just uses that emotion. That's the emotion he's thinking with.
Say that one more time.
Okay, sure. Okay, well, first of all, I'll say why I think this is different than your understanding. That my understanding of your understanding is that he thinks too much, and then it winds up he just doesn't share anything. Okay. What I was trying to say is that not that he's even thinking too much and overanalyzing something, as much as his analysis is not as much a true analysis of his intellect as much as it is just emotionally he's getting pushed to hide things.
Okay, see, that's where I think maybe you can interpret Arum that way, but the reason why I don't like that is because that's the opposite of what an Arum is. Like Arum has a greater self-awareness. So that's why I'm trying to interpret it in a way where his decision to conceal the knowledge is coming from his awareness of either his own emotions or other people's emotions.
Okay.
So you can salvage your idea if you explain to me why he's being called an Arum.
Yeah. Okay.
You see why I'm getting it from where I'm coming from?
It's just no longer the exact quality of what an Arum is.
Right. Yeah. I'm saying it either has to be like, and maybe there's more than just the two possibilities I mentioned, but like I can see an Arum like being so like self-aware that he lets the self-awareness like I'm like, and then it was like this. Let's say I realize that I'm only like giving a shiur or like writing a thing because of my ego, and like maybe my ego is gonna tarnish this knowledge, but then I end up not sharing it at all, and then that causes like a net loss, or let's say he's so aware of other person's emotions that he falls into the trap that a lot of chachamim fall into, which is you think you have total mastery over this person's emotions in terms of your knowledge, and you like are working out like, well, if I say this now, this gonna have this effect, and like whereas like you have to realize like back off, man, like you don't know everything about everyone's psychology, so you can't like like map out all the causes and effects of this, yeah,
I hear that.
And then just to complete the idea here, and then I'll call an Ariel, is that to complete the summary here is that the Ksil makes the opposite mistake of sharing everything without any sort of filter, and those are just the two opposites. And the Chacham then would be in the middle path of looking objectively at the consequences of sharing this information. Yariel?
Can I try a Darth Nestor approach based off of
sure. Do you want me to answer your question about the Darth Nestor first or after?
After.
Okay.
Just to see if I'm on track.
Sure, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so okay, maybe you could say that like it's kind. I think it's similar to one of the ideas that I mentioned, but applying it to oneself for their own personal growth.
Yeah.
So I think maybe a cunning person conceals knowledge. Maybe like there are times where like they, especially like when you're in yeshiva and when you're learning a lot. There's like a ton of information that you just can't handle. Like you can't you're not ready to dissect. You're not ready to analyze because of your skill set or whatever it is. Because if you venture into those areas, it may cause you more harm than good.
Yeah.
Right. So right. there are moments or times that you should just take a step back and grow your skill set before you venture into those areas. You know what I mean? But the second half of the pasuk is saying, no, like a fool, he's going to take everything on and he's going to attempt to, do everything, and it could really hurt himself. I don't know.
But what is the concealing and the proclaiming? I'm just trying.
So the concealing, a cunning person conceals knowledge, meaning he's concealing just means he's like not engaged in it.
Okay, so that the imagery then is like saying I'm not ready for the more nevuchim, and like putting more like concealing it in that sense. Okay, fine, right. So proclaiming though
is proclaiming is like I'm ready for everything.
Yeah, that part doesn't fit in as smoothly. I like the first half though.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. I was kind of like stretching on the second half anyway.
I hear. So to answer your question about the difference between the derech nigla and the derech nister, my basic understanding is that the derech nigla is treating the pasuk as treating Mishlei as a book on how to make decisions that enhance your physical or psychological life, like give you more pleasure and less pain. Whereas the derech nister is how to give you perfection of the soul. And there are cases where the Meiri says that the nister and the nigla overlap. So like this might easily be one of those cases. Let's see what the Meiri actually says on this one, and then we'll stop for tonight, I think. Meiri says, where did he go? Derech nister yiforish bo henyan ba'atmo shepirashim. Oh, he says he explained it earlier in 116. Let's just look at, or sorry, not in 116, 12:16. Let's just see what he said there. That was the other pasuk about the Evil b'yom yivada kasto v'kosa kalan arum. The anger of an Evil will be made known on that day, but an arum covers his disgrace or his pain. Meiri there said, Havil kishitiskashlo inyan mevucha b'dvarim ha'amukim. Oh yeah, I remember doing this. Yeah, so when the Evil has a speaking of more nevuchim, when he has a mevucha, a perplexity, a confusion in deep matters, yodia lakol mevuchas umiyad, he immediately tells everyone about his problem that he's having in philosophy. Vis parsim kalono, and he will publicize his shame. V'yavi atzmo lidei chashad hariso kfira, and he will bring himself into the realm of people suspecting him of heresy or denying Torah ideas. But the cunning person, when he encounters a doubt or a confusion, he will conceal his shame. He'll analyze the thing very deliberately and slowly until a spirit from on high enlightens him of Yasig Orchos Chaim, and he attains the paths of life. Yeah. Okay, so what does that have to do with our pasuk?
Can you summarize his second half of the idea? I get the first half where
second half of the idea was that I forgot the second half of the pasuk though. Yivada kaso that he'll conceal it, meaning he won't tell everyone about it. But he'll work on it very gradually and slowly, and then he'll make progress, and then he'll answer it. Yeah. I don't know what that has to do with this pasuk though. I'm not going to read this, but I will encourage you, by the way, to look at the Malbim, who has a nice long thingy here. But just because I was reminded that the Malbim has this very odd way of learning Evil, that Evil comes from the same shoresh as ulai, as maybe, and he says it's about someone who is a skeptic. Okay, so he has a whole way of learning it based on that, but that's not for us right now because my throat's starting to hurt again. Okay, so let's just summarize. Okay, so we had here Alex and Tamar both took the approach of we're talking about someone who wants to appear to be wise. And one of the hallmarks of someone who actually is wise is they don't just blab their knowledge indiscriminately, and they're very judicious with it. And so even if you're not wise, actually, there's a pasuk in Mishlei that actually says that outright. I should have remembered that. Gam Evil Yacharish Chacham Yechashev. I think that's what the pasuk says. Nope. Hold on a second. Chacham yechashev. Where is it? Pasuk in Mishlei 17:28. Gam evil macharish chacham yechashev otim sfas of navon. Even an evil, even a fool who silences himself, will be considered a chacham. One who covers his mouth will be considered understanding. You know, so that's like the approach that Tamar and Alex are taking. And if you blab, if you just like share everything that you know, so then people will know that you don't really know anything. A, because we're familiar with that kind of person. B, because you'll sense that frantic need to like address the person's insecurity about like trying to assure everyone that he's a chacham. C, it'll be evident that he lacks that humility that comes in the face of knowledge. D, he'll expose himself to people asking more questions, which will just lead to more ways that he could be found out as not really knowing anything. And then Tamar also pointed out that like part of the what makes the person realize that this is a chacham is they see that he distributes the language, the knowledge in a way that is very like it hits the spot, like it does exactly what it needs and is received well. And this person is just like dishing out knowledge. It's clear that like they're not treating the knowledge like a connoisseur in that way. Ariel's idea was about sharing what you know, even stuff that is actually like valuable knowledge. But the Arum will have the self-control and realize like, oh, maybe the reason why I think it's relevant to share this is because of my emotions. And he'll be able to sense that emotion and realize like, no, the situation doesn't call for it, even though I really want to share it. Whereas, and this is my addition to Ariel's idea, the seal, the person who's addicted to pleasure, will not be able to exercise that self-control. And like Rבינו, Yona, and the מאירי said, as soon as it enters their mind, they'll just say it because they just can't exercise that self-control. Michael's idea was that this is really talking about teaching or sharing knowledge, that the Arum has a greater perspective on what it takes to get there, to get to the point where you know this, and he'll know what knowledge to share and what not to share and when to share it and who to share it with. Whereas the people at the bottom, the Ksil, will just share it indiscriminately. And the pasuk is talking to the person in the middle to say that if you're in, if you not are in doubt, but if you're on your way up the knowledge ladder, like err on the side of being like the Arum and not just like indiscriminately sharing it, and you'll achieve better results there. And then David's idea was that these are two bad decisions, both in opposite ways. The overly cautious Arum, who, according to me, allows his Orma to conceal knowledge when really that knowledge might be doing a lot of good. And then the Ksil, who's totally oblivious or addicted to pleasure or whatever it is, and just proclaims everything without thinking about the consequences. And then we had my idea from the past about Orma being essential in communication, certainly for knowledge, but even if you're trying to convey something that is foolishness, then you have to know the audience that you're talking to and take their emotions into account. Okay, nice ideas. And I think in terms of the summer, so next week, as far as I know, we should be on. And then I think we're going to be off for the remainder of August because I am flying in, God willing, the beginning of the second to last week on the 20th. And my schedule on Monday is going to be messed up. I might be driving somewhere on Monday. And then the first week of my school is on the last week of August. So we'll have to like pick up after. Yeah, we'll talk after that. But let's plan for next week, but then not for the rest of August.
But what's school?
Oh, yes, I have not publicly announced that yet. So that's
that's for recording, and you can just
yeah. All right, a lot of people know about it already, but I'll stop recording now.